Hello, welcome to the TechPros.io Enterprise Thought Leadership Podcast, where leaders from business and technology functions come together to share solutions to common challenges in their sector. I'm Tim Bond, founder of TechPros.io and your host. In today's episode, we discuss aligning sales and marketing for success. More specifically, how to reposition marketing as a peer-to-peer strategic partner of sales. Traditionally, sales and marketing have operated in isolation. Sales teams often perceive marketing as a tactical resource for creating content on demand and responsible for delivering sales leads, which they often complain are unqualified and a waste of time. Consequently, marketing feels undervalued and overlooked. This disconnect results in minimal day-to-day engagement, hindering effective collaboration and communication. In this episode, we hear from 3 technology marketing leaders who offer practical strategies to bridge the gap and foster a stronger partnership between these two functions. To discuss these solutions, I spoke with Sophie Gray, founder of The Marketing Bee, a marketing consultancy she founded in 2020 following 23 years marketing experience in the technology sector. The Marketing Bee offers, as Sophie puts it, IT marketing expertise as a service, helping tech companies tackle a wide range of marketing challenges and plug skills gaps. Sophie, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Talk to us a little bit more about perhaps how you've seen over the last 20 years, the sales and marketing teams often find each other in conflict.
Yes, so it's an interesting one, and it's an issue that keeps coming up and doesn't seem to go away. If anything, it's just getting more and more complicated in some ways. We run a series of events called the Channel Meetup, and they are kind of in-person workshop-led events that we run 3 times a year. And the whole theme of last year's event was sales and marketing alignment. So we had lots of different discussions going on about sales and marketing alignment, and this one in particular about how marketing can effectively market themselves within an organization. To rebrand marketing within a very sales-heavy culture was something that came up, and we had a lot of conversation about. And we did some research of the attendees on the day, and 63% of people, before coming to the event, 63% of people said that improving alignment between sales and marketing was a key priority for them. So it's clearly something that needs to be addressed by a lot of people, but it's something that is, because it's more of an internal challenge, possibly struggles to get prioritized over external sales and marketing functions.
I definitely think it's got better over the last few years. Some of the research we did and thought leadership publications that we produced 5 years ago, I remember there being a lot more of a siloed kind of problem and mindset. I do think with the evolution of a kind of and almost the conversion of marketing and sales, we are seeing better collaboration. So it's very interesting to hear that it's still a really massive problem so recently in your events. Michael Bear is a fractional CMO with 30 years marketing experience working across the full organizational spectrum from startup to enterprise. His career has spanned several industries, including healthcare, market research, and advertising.
I see four buckets of things to do. Maybe it's a 4-step, but it's not sequential. So four buckets of things to do. One is some executive corporate stuff, which is some sort of executive level discussion to ensure the CMO and the CRO or whoever runs, are equals, that this is viewed as a partnership, that somehow there's some sort of demonstration. Well, first agreement and then demonstration that we're going to true these things up and align these teams and these cultures. The second is just strategy stuff. And this is part of sort of the third, which is process stuff. I think strategy stuff is like these two teams need to develop and align around customer personas and goals and pain points and journey work. Like, let's make sure there's a strategic work done, which also helps drive strategic and team alignment. And then the third is process stuff. Like, there should be an implemented plan. Like, there's an annual plan. We align around objectives for these things. We talk about how we're going to measure things. We build a process to ensure that this is not just a tactical call you up on a Tuesday and I need something by the end of the day. And then the fourth would be culture stuff. Like, have them do stuff together, do things, go places, have a party, speak the same language. And sure, we talk about each other in ways that what this does and that does. So there's just more of a cultural one-to-one way of working together.
You made this point around the importance of putting in place a strategic plan between the top of the marketing tree and the top of the sales tree, as in the CMO and the chief revenue officer. Can you just share in a bit more light what would sort of be in that plan exactly?
I think there's identifying and defining what it looks like, but then there's actually the mirroring and dramatizing or demonstrating that to the rest of the organization.
Yeah.
So it starts with an executive level really with the CEO level partnership agreement between marketing and sales that it's because at the end of the day, it is always about the people and the teams themselves. But in a company, culture really does come top down, or at least it needs to be, demonstrated top down. And so you need to have at the executive levels, on the ELT, say the executive leadership team, there has to be this clarity that these are co-equals, that they work together, that they are, as I've said to you, two sides of the same coin versus two very different things, or one in the service of the other. And so, once this happens, then it needs to be demonstrated to the rest of the company. So what does that look like? I think first off, you have to, make it clear there is a CMO or there's a head of marketing, and that person doesn't report to the head of sales. You have to demonstrate it by rewarding behaviors beyond just the closing of a deal.
Yeah.
I've worked at companies where, obviously a sale is the end goal of what of a longer process. And while it is bringing in revenue for the company, there are lots of touches and activities and behaviors that happen prior to the inking of the contract that need to be at least celebrated to some extent, as much as that heroic last touch attribution of the seller. So I think a company needs to acknowledge those actions and even begin to somehow demonstrably reward them or highlight them, which is, again, I think the elevation of marketing to the chief marketing officer and having a seat at the table is one of those good ways it demonstrates that. I mean, I will tell you, I was the first CMO of like a $200 million healthcare marketing services media company, and I'm pretty sure it was the first time marketing was on the ELT, and just the daily stand-up meetings and the weekly meetings and the quarterly strategy sessions and the annual planning. So me being in there, I think, obviously put marketing in a different light, perceptual light to the rest of the leadership team, but then they, clearly translated that to their teams and just gave marketing, it did some of that work, that initial work, as you're saying, of elevating or changing the perception, or at least elevating the partnership marketing should have with sales. I think the first work of demonstrating to the entire organization from the top down, the value of marketing and the collaboration, the collaborative partnership of sales and marketing. But it is ultimately then the day-to-day work of those two teams working together. And that's why, what I said when we talked about what those four-step program of doing it, the second is strategic work which is both together and separate, but strategic work that will align those teams. And it aligns the teams both, because a lot of this work will be done together. So there's alignment. But then secondarily, once some of this work is set, as foundational, and when I say the work, I mean, annual strategic planning.
Yeah.
Really more it begins with understanding of, customers and consumers and persona work and, paths to purchase and customer journey work. Once those things are aligned, and core objectives and pain points and what are the needs of our customers, then there's alignment around, hey, what are we actually doing on a day-to-day basis? Because at the end of the day, sales and marketing are doing the same thing. They begin with an understanding of your customer.
Yes.
An amount of empathy, meaning I hear you, I feel you, and then a concerted effort to engage in ways in storytelling and man-to-man, one-to-one conversation that demonstrates you understand and have solutions for them. So, when you align strategic pillars of customer understanding and insights and how they go to market and make the decisions and choices they make when they're in market, there's a lot more alignment between the two teams.
Right. So what I'm hearing is really just about making sure, first of all, that the plan is in place, communicated, everyone understands everyone else's role, but then actively get the teams working together on a strategic plan, get them into workshops, get them working against the same key objectives and reporting effectively in a joint team. And then I guess the kind of the mutual respect between the human beings involved will evolve. And people are going to be too embarrassed to be asking cheeky things to people that they've now got respect for, because they can see their talent and the value that they're adding beyond being a resource for sales.
Exactly. No, 100%. I think it's the human bit about doing things together and learning to respect each other. But then it's also the fact that what you're hearing marketers talk about they're talking about my customer, and they're understanding them, and they're demonstrating insight that will help me when I go talk to them, or create tools and sales enablement. I mean, I think just in the simple process of doing this work, lots of good ideas that are on strategy will come up between them.
Yes.
Again, that demonstrates that they are speaking the same language,
yes.
and they add value to each other.
Yes, definitely. Brilliant. Okay. I just want to bring up one other topic that you brought in, and it's quite a funny one, right? It's around, you reference Gary Vee and his comments around firing toxic salespeople to avoid disrupting the culture of the organization, right? And I guess my questions to you is do you know of any organization that's ever fired their top salesperson, or is this sort of Gary Vee being Gary Vee?
It's definitely Gary Vee being Gary Vee, but in a way, I think we all know he's right. I've worked at some places, one in particular I can think of where, a real sales leader was just churning through people on it happened to be a guy, his team, anybody on the marketing team that's, worked with that group would leave the company, and the CEO on down all knew it. And they would talk about, this person's, they're on a probation or whatever. But every quarter, that person was winning the sales award, winning the, incentive compensation awards. They were winning, culture awards. So you send a very different message to the org. That's basically what Gary is saying. He's saying,
yes.
And I've said the same. You get the behaviors you incentivize, and if you incentivize bad behaviors, you're going to have a bad cultural. You're going to have bad cultural dynamics. But if you incentivize the right ones, you begin to see those more. That's why I was saying at the beginning. If from the top down you say, hey, look, we're going to be a marketing led or a sales and marketing joint led company, and here's how we're literally going to demonstrate that, and then we're going to begin to incentivize that. Either it being in the way we talk about you in your personnel evaluation, or if it's literally, at the end of the day, monetary. We give monthly stipends or awards that have compensation, you'll start to see some different behaviors come out. And so I think will do companies do that? No, not as much as they should. But it's said you hire, you fire for culture. You don't hire for it. Hiring is always a bit of a crapshoot, and you do the best you can, but you kind of close your eyes and hope. But when you make a fire, you're doing it for a real reason, and it can very much be a culture driver, because people see when you let somebody go who's literally making the company less desirable to those who currently work there.
Michael offered some interesting thoughts around sort of strategy and planning, top-down culture, obviously the importance of aligning the two functions.
I like Michael's solution because it was very structured, and I think key to solving this is having some kind of structure. So we put it into those 4 buckets, didn't he? Having some executive level activity, having some strategy activity, having a process, and then the kind of doing stuff together angle, which kind of really resonated with me. I think to kind of take each of those in turn, the executive level discussions I think are really, really important, but I think it's important as well not to underestimate the power of the line manager. So, it's very easy to say it's a top-down approach and CEO needs to drive the discussions. And this is something that I think Chris went on to talk about as well. But I think it's also that something that needs to be just inherent in company culture, which is why I think his point about doing things together and building relationships and going out and doing things is a really big point as well. Because I think at the end of the day, we're people and people work with people. So the more you can do to connect people and have people learn about each other's jobs and challenges, the better, really. I think that's one of the reasons why it is getting a little bit better, because as marketing has got more digitized over the last 10, 15 years, we're all subjected to more marketing as individuals and consumers than we ever have been. So there's just a better kind of inherent knowledge of what marketing is than there would have been in the old kind of direct mail and and just physical event type of activity. So I think that's got a big part to play in it as well.
Interesting. So I mean the whole people people change management, the people issues is a common theme and across everyone really at the event, if I remember. So the last point actually that Michael made was this this sort of quote from Gary Vee around firing your best salesperson and solve your cultural issues. Have you ever come across this before, or do you have any thoughts on the sort of the alpha salesperson and perhaps any negative effects they might have on the overall sales and marketing department?
I think it's something that's really common in IT, and particularly common in IT channels. I've seen it a lot. I've seen sales leaders just decimate the culture of an organization because a new sales leader has come in with a very different, more aggressive culture than the company's been used to. And they've got good results quickly, but then the culture's been decimated and the sales results suffer as a result of that. Have I seen somebody fire a really good salesperson because they're damaging the culture? No, I don't think I have, off memory. No.
Chris Collier is a B2B marketing leader with over 15 years experience. He has been through 3 successful technology exits and is currently Director of Marketing at Cybermax. Chris has deep experience in ABM, SEO, and SEM.
It comes down to culture. That's typically been a lot of the challenges that we've had. And why I say that is that the root of all evil is sales is telling marketing, we're not bringing enough qualified leads. Marketing is telling sales, you're not closing these leads. These are qualified leads. And so what we've found is that definitely that sales enablement and sales alignment between marketing and sales has been extremely crucial to remove a lot of what I call the toxic cancer cultural aspects that really can destroy a company as a whole. And so getting those SLAs in place, getting alignments, really making sure that sales knows that we're all on the same team. And there's a psychological portion to this too, is getting everybody on board the same bus. And that can be difficult, especially if you don't have everybody aligned from a cultural standpoint. If everybody gets on the bus and they can't make a decision where they're going, then the bus is going to either drive around aimlessly, which kind of sounds what that company is going through, or they'll just sit there, which is about as bad as just driving around aimlessly. At least less money will be spent. How I would do this would be to, it comes down from a leadership standpoint, getting all leaders aligned and saying, listen, marketing can't do the job unless things are planned ahead. There's some kind of calendar, editorial calendar, in order to develop programs and campaigns to support the sales team.
What advice can you give to organizations to celebrate as a joint sales and marketing team, obviously remotely? And what would how would those celebrations work, being mindful that we can't always get everyone together in the same room?
Right. I mean, that has probably been the one thing I do miss about working remotely. When COVID hit, there was so much uncertainty about moving home and how it was going to work out. But I ultimately, there's so many articles that are coming out saying that people are not as productive, or there's not the camaraderie. I'm seeing the opposite. People are more productive. People are more, there's more camaraderie coming around. And I think it's because everybody's more relaxed and they're at home and it's just less stressed of having to drive, commute back and forth, et cetera, et cetera. But the celebrations, the lack of celebrations, the mini celebrations, like, hey, everybody, we're going to huddle down. We're going to pop a bottle of champagne real quick, or you know what, I'm bringing in donuts. Those don't exist anymore. And so one thing that we've done, we send Uber Eats to everybody. Hey, everybody, we're having a party at this time. I go, noon in New York is going to be almost, pretty much breakfast in the West Coast. So you don't have to use your Uber Eats at that time, but it is available all day. So, treat yourself and get together and be like, listen, here are the wins, and here are the people that made this happen and the teams that made this happen. And that's gone a long way as that acknowledgement, because I don't even know if that was really happening pre-COVID, of just, at least in the organizations I've been affiliated with, is identifying enough those wins. And so what I've found is post-COVID and everybody working from home is those celebrations are happening more often, but it's more just the recognition. It doesn't have to be a party. We get everyone together and everybody drinks a bunch of alcohol, eats a bunch of food. It's just a quick, hey, here's the win, and here's an Uber Eats card or an Amazon gift card or something, just to kind of acknowledge like you went above and beyond.
Over the last few years, it's become really apparent that sales and marketing are beginning to collaborate a lot more than they were previously, due to the changes of the buying process and the customer engagement process, etc. So kind of what's on my mind is, and it's sort of in line with this joint celebrations, is there not an argument for saying that actually marketing, ultimately what the organization is trying to do is generate revenue? And whilst marketing can be held responsible for the top of the funnel KPIs, maybe marketing should also receive some form of bonus or commission when the sales come in, and then that really is a way of ensuring that the two teams are fully commercially aligned.
You have really hit the nail on the head, and that is something that I have always preached for. In my last company, that was something that we never got, always talked about it. I alone, just with a lot of the digital marketing campaigns created, I think one year it was 10.7 in ARR pipeline with 2.7 million closed, no bonus or anything.
Mhm.
And granted, there's a lot of conversations, a lot of arguments coming like, well, you're doing your job. But if I'm not doing my job, where does all that come in? I think that there should be some alignment where maybe it's not the same percentage, or maybe when numbers get hit, there's a bonus pool that gets divvied up between the team. But I think that would definitely squash a lot of water cooler conversations and negative views from marketing to sales if something like that was set up.
Chris talked about having a common calendar to align sales and marketing in a common objective. So that was an interesting point he made, I thought. He talked a bit about celebrations, particularly in a remote environment, and then he also talked about aligning incentives. So were there any of those three that particularly stuck out for you?
I think aligning incentives is really a key point, and you'll see now a lot more marketing leaders are paid on revenue, and a lot more marketing teams are paid on revenue and closed revenue business, as opposed to leads or bonuses or any other kind of KPI. And I think that coming together of targets is absolutely fundamental on how you align sales and marketing. So if you align people at the point where it means something to them, how they're going to get paid, that's a really big behavior change in people. So starting from that and then working back from that can almost be the same way. And you see it with aligning other teams as well, aligning direct sales teams with channel sales teams. As soon as you take away the compensation argument between the two teams, and people get paid on the deal regardless of where it was sourced, a lot of those arguments go away. So I think paying everybody that's involved in sourcing the lead, closing the lead, delivering the lead is important, because I think it's important to recognise as well that marketing isn't just top of funnel, it's not just lead generation. Good marketing supports a deal throughout the whole life cycle of a sale, through to advocacy, through to helping the sales negotiations, through to having the technical conversations, through to customer care and how the customer's treated after they've become a customer. So I think aligning marketing across all of those functions, all of those steps is really, really important. And I think that's one of the biggest ways organizations can help rebrand marketing into sales, is to really help them understand how customers buy, what those steps are, how sales influence those steps and how marketing influence those steps, and then workshop together how they can work better across each of those journeys. We spend a lot of our time doing internal stakeholder interviews, aligning different people internally to gather perspectives across different functions, playing back to them what everybody thinks, and then workshopping one common objective. And I think it's that, what is your true north as a business, and how do we align all of the teams against that true north? That, I think, is the ultimate goal of why we're wanting to align.
Seth Steinman is VP of Marketing at Prevail, an encrypted email platform. He's been in B2B SaaS marketing for over 15 years, the last 10 of which have been with VC-backed companies, where he's led the marketing and growth teams.
The solution to this will have to come from the top no matter what, and it should come from probably the CEO. Whoever the joint owner of the sales and marketing and channel issue is, needs to should be the one bringing this up. And I would suggest it as kind of like a maybe a book club of sorts, or if there's some kind of leadership meeting, you spend the first 5-10 minutes talking about it. And I do think it's that important. And I have definitely been in companies where you have strong leaders who, do have similar tactics, books, especially that are relevant to a problem we're trying to solve.
No, definitely. I mean, funnily enough, I got the audiobook of Radical Candor. I'll be honest, I haven't got into it yet. But personally, do you have any experience with this book as being a useful book to share with business teams?
I send this to every new hire. on my team for the last like 3 companies I've been at.
Right. So you've got personal experience of kind of implementing this strategy of getting people to read a book. Maybe you could just share a few thoughts or experiences on how, just talk us through the process and what the outcomes were.
Yeah, I mean, it's the standard in which I manage my teams. So there's a few different components to it, but the most important is that you care personally about the individuals, and then you can challenge directly. And it needs to be in that order. But it is the best way that I've found to have that kind of open and clear communication, while still maintaining, good personal relationships with the team. It doesn't really matter if they read the whole book. A lot of these business books can really probably be a 10th of the length. Even if you go and, have people pre-read and then you give them like a, 3-page SparkNotes version of the book to start off the workshop, and then you go through it. I think that could provide a ton of value as well. But yeah, the in-person part, if you're a good facilitator, whoever the leader is, that's fine. But, typically someone from HR or bringing in like an external facilitator can be really helpful too. Making it fun, having like fun elements is probably big. And that's part of that care personally, right? Building like personal connections and building that trust is kind of probably the most important element to get out of that in-person workshop. There are absolutely workshops and activities that you can like find online related specifically to radical candor and how to talk about it.
Right. So there's playbooks there you can find on the internet that you just follow. Okay, brilliant. It was really interesting to hear that Seth literally uses this radical candor book as a strategic tool in every gig that he's involved in. What are your thoughts?
I had mixed opinions on this because I loved it and I loved the idea of it. But as somebody that was married to a IT salesperson for many years, and I was an IT marketing person, and there was some sales and marketing alignment conversations that happened there. He would come home every year or so from sales kickoff with a new book. And that book went on the shelf and never got read. So when I first heard it, I thought, nice idea, but how on earth are you going to get people to read that book? But he then went on and said, you don't need to read the whole book because you can probably summarize it in 3 pages. And if you can summarize it in 3 pages for people and recognize that different people hear and learn differently. So maybe put it as a podcast, have it something to be read, have it as a video to watch, or have it as a workshop, and then maybe really do some management workshopping to help people think about how to use the learnings from that book, then 100% it's a great idea. But I think the concept of giving people a book and asking people to read it, I don't read books out of pleasure anymore because I don't have time to read novels anymore. So I've got lots of books I'd like to read, but do I get around to reading them? No, not really.
Yeah. No, I think to be fair, Seth was saying that you don't have to read the whole book.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
He was also mentioning, of course, the importance of having a good facilitator to ensure that it is workshopped properly, and ultimately, I forget. He was saying something along the lines of the ultimate objective is to build the relationships with people, and then be very, the radical candor, be very honest and straight talking with people, because you've earned the right, or you can get away with it without kind of emotionally upsetting them, right? And I think that's the core thing ultimately that he's trying to say, is that if everyone can be really direct and open and honest, then people understand other people's issues early on. People can empathize with each other, and as a result of that, they're gonna it's the you're forming, storming, norming, and performing, isn't it? You can really accelerate that process, or perhaps make it far less emotionally charged if you approach this in the way perhaps that the book suggests. Mm-hmm. So
I think it's a great way to get culture into the organization as well. If you're giving a book in culture that says, we as an organization embrace honest and open conversations, and this is how we do that, whether people read the book or not, you're sending that message. So if you think about when new hires join an organisation, it's popular now to send a new hire kit with a water bottle and a t-shirt and some things for their desk, because it's more remote working than in the office working. So to put something in there that has a culture message, I think is a really good thing to do, because it supports the whole getting to know people's perspectives, things that we've been talking about.
Brilliant. Sophie, thank you very much. Some great thoughts and comments on the solutions that everyone has given to address this challenge that many organizations face around how to reposition marketing as a peer-to-peer strategic partner with sales, or more generally, just how to ensure that the sales and marketing team work together well and achieve their objectives. So thank you so much, Sophie. And could I just ask if anyone is interested in learning more about the Marketing Bee and your services, what's the best way to reach you?
Either on the website, which is the marketingbee.com, bee as in the buzzy animal, or to email me, Sophie, SOPHY, @themarketingbee.com.
Thanks for listening to the Enterprise Thought Leadership Podcast. If you found the episode valuable, please subscribe and share. You can find links to all the participants in the notes below, along with any useful resources we discussed. If you want to get in touch with me, my email is tim.b@techpros.io. That's B as in Bond or Bravo. Until next time, goodbye.